What if reaching every goal still left you feeling empty? In this episode, Kevin Palmieri, founder of Next Level University, shares his journey from six-figure success to rock bottom and how choosing fulfillment over performance changed everything. We're going to explore what it means to rebuild your life from the inside out, why external success can't heal internal wounds, and how Kevin found purpose through podcasting and service. If you are craving more meaning in the midst of success, this conversation is for you.
Yes, Kevin Palmieri is the founder and host of Next Level University, a global podcast dedicated to holistic self improvement. After hitting rock bottom despite outward success and a six-figure income, Kevin chose to rebuild his life around purpose, fulfillment, and service. Today, he helps others to do the same through daily podcasting, coaching, and speaking on love, health, wealth, and self leadership. Kevin, welcome to Flying Upstream.
Hello, my friends. Number one, you make me sound so good, which I appreciate so very well. And you guys are amazing. I'm excited to chat.
We are so excited to have you. I want to start out with your story. I want to hear it from directly from your mouth.
Okay.
Tell me a little bit about your childhood, how you got here, and how we get to be so lucky to be sitting here with you today.
So I'll give like the 5-minute version because I know we don't have a ton of time and I don't want to take the whole thing talking about me. Raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad. I didn't meet my dad until I was 27. So obviously that plays a role in a young man's life, and it still plays a role in my life today. Didn't have a lot of money, lower middle class, but I always had decisions. So even as a kid, my mom never told me I had to do things in a certain way. I always kind of had the freedom to choose what I wanted to do with my life. So that led to me knowing pretty early on in life that I just didn't want to go to college. It just didn't make sense to me to go pay $25,000 a year when I didn't know what I wanted to do. So in high school, I started to train mixed martial arts and I wanted to be a professional fighter. That was like my first thing that I wanted to do. Then I worked at a gas station. Then I worked at a hospital cleaning bathrooms and floors overnight. Then I was a personal trainer. I was a truck driver. I was a forklift operator. I was an on-call firefighter. I was all over the place. So nothing really of note happened in my childhood. It was more later on when I got this really good job in my early 20s. As you alluded to, I had a beautiful girlfriend. She was a model at the time. I had a sports car. I had a high-paying job. I had great friends. I had a new apartment. And to top it off, I was in the best shape I will ever be in because I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show. One day, my girlfriend at the time sat me down and she said, "Hey, I'm leaving. You're not the man you were at the beginning of this. And I have very big goals and very big dreams. And I don't feel like you're the man who can help me get there." And unfortunately, she was correct. And this is the thing that really shifted things for me. She said, "I was going to leave you a month ago, but I was afraid if I did, you might kill yourself." And she wasn't saying it to be mean. It wasn't a dig. It was like, "Hey, I'm worried. I'm worried about you." And I remember thinking, how did I get here? I felt like it was bad, but I didn't realize it was that bad. Unfortunately, I fell into the trap that I think a lot of people do, where I thought, well, I just haven't made enough money yet. If I make more money, everything will kind of wash itself out. It'll dissolve. So I proceeded to get a raise and a promotion at my job. So I was making even more money. And then I went on to the next year where I spent 10 months traveling up and down the East Coast of the US for my job, living in hotels every single week, working 18, 20, 24-hour days because I just wanted to make a boatload of money. And that's what I was doing. So fast forward to the end of that year, I made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree, still miserable. My bank account was better, but my mental health was worse for sure. I did what any young man would do. I started a podcast after that. For most of my life, I lived unconsciously. The opposite of unconscious is hyperconscious. I'm going to do that. I'm going to make a podcast called the Hyperconscious Podcast. Fell in love with it, as I can tell you both have, but it was not paying the bills. As I'm sure you know, in the beginning, it's a passion project. We just want to do it because we love it. But I just hated my job because I knew that was no longer the thing that was going to make me happy. And I wanted to do this podcast thing. So I start calling out of work. I start leaving the job sites early. I start showing up late. And all of this was happening as my mental health was going down a worse and worse path. So this all culminated and kind of crescendoed on a day where I was working in New Jersey. My alarm clock went off at 5:15. I sat up. I slid to the edge of the bed. I was lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it is there was 10 televisions on in my head at the same time, and every single one was on a different station. And one is saying, you're stuck here forever. You didn't go to college. You do not have any transferable skills. You got lucky to get this job. Do not mess this up. If you ever did leave, what would your friends say? You make more money than any of your friends. If you ever left, what would your family say? You make more money than anybody in your family ever has. My mom used to take my car to work because she liked my car and she wanted to show it off to her coworkers. That feels good. And the loudest one for me was, do you really think you're going to be a successful podcaster? Like that's our plan C or D or E or F. How many plans have we used up here? I think we're running out of them. So my rock bottom basement moment was, I thought to myself, well, if I was just to take my life, I would take all my problems with me. And that was the day that changed everything for me. I reached out to my friend who is now my business partner. He gave me some really good advice, created a brighter future for me that I didn't have for myself. And I ended up leaving that job 3 or 4 months later, and boom, we were off to the races in 2018 trying to figure out this thing. So much has happened after that. It actually got worse for a while, which I'm happy to talk about, but that is the inception story of how we got here, so to speak.
I so appreciate that you really did hit rock bottom. This wasn't something that you just talk about. You have lived that pain yourself. And so many of us try to outrun our pain by chasing success. When did you realize that you couldn't out-earn or outperform your trauma?
Later than I wish, for sure. I would like to say it happened early on in that process. It was, I'll never forget. I was opening my final pay stub to figure out whether or not I made $100,000. I was standing at my kitchen table because my ex-girlfriend had taken the chairs. They were her chairs, and I was never home, so I never bought new ones. So my house, it was just such like an empty, sad energy. And I remember looking at that pay stub, expecting to get this overjoyment of happiness and fulfillment, and I got neither of those. That is when I realized, oh, this is way more an internal problem than it is an external problem. That was the wake-up call for me as pie in the sky, cookie cutter saying as it might be. Like, that was it for me. To have everything that I thought I wanted and to realize that everything I thought I wanted did not fix the parts of me that I wanted it to, that was the wake-up call. So when I opened that final pay stub, that's when I learned.
What do you think that wound was? Have you been able to reflect as to what exactly wound that was?
Louisa, podcast was called Hyperconscious, so I signed up to know everything about myself, right? That was the goal. One, I feel like I never felt like I was good enough because my dad left, and I was convinced he left because it was me. It was personal. That's not the case, obviously, but it's highly emotional with stuff like that. So that was one. Two, I was always the little peon growing up. I was smaller than everybody else. I was always the runt of the litter. I actually did okay with women. I just never felt like I did. So in my mind, if I make a boatload of money, I get jacked, and I have an attractive partner, all the things that I longed for when I was young, those puzzle pieces will be filled in. So I think it's a mix of abandonment issues. I think it's a mix of like PTSD, a mix of depression that runs in the family. I've actually had several people in my life attempt to take their lives, one of them successfully. Didn't realize that until I connected the dots later. And then all of that paired with just assuming external results will fix my internal voids, unfortunately. So a cocktail of that, I would say.
So as you started this new podcast, I'm curious if there was a moment when podcasting didn't just feel like an escape, but felt like your way home to yourself.
I was walking around the kitchen one day, and at this point, it was 2018. I had already burned through all of my savings. I had $10,000 to work with, and I spent money like an idiot because I thought we'd be successful a lot sooner than we were. And at this point, I was probably $15,000 or $20,000 in credit card debt. And I remember walking around the kitchen, the brokest I'd been maybe ever. I was so lonely at that point. I felt so alone, and nobody cared about the podcast. Like there was 0 levels of success. But I remember thinking for the first time, I actually feel fulfilled. I had never felt that before. I had never felt like I was doing something greater than me. I had never felt like I was growing beyond what I was currently capable of. I had never felt any of those things. When I felt that, it was a really good sign for me that I'm on the right path and this is probably what I'm supposed to be doing. There was no money. I mean, it was bad. I was having panic attacks. I thought I was going to die. It got worse before it got better. But I just remember thinking, if I could find a way to do this for the rest of my life, that would be the best life ever. And I remember I used to wake up in the middle of the night and my fear was somebody was going to take this from me. Like I need to find a way to make money to get to the end of the week, to the end of the month, to the end of the year. I'll do that as long as I have to. So that, yeah, when I felt fulfillment for the first time, that was a really good signal that I was on the right path.
Oh, that's so beautiful. And I can attest to that. I'm here. And I totally understand what that feels like and the difference in the path of sort of doing everything for external reasons versus doing all of the things that make us feel that fulfillment that we want to feel. A lot of times, and the way that I perceive it myself is sort of like life is harder now in a meaningful way. What does that look like for you today?
Today, so yesterday was 6 a.m. until 9:30 p.m. on a 52 sleep score on my Oura ring. I slept like garbage. It was terrible. And I was laughing my butt off at the end of the night when we were recording our episode. I stay up until 9:30 to record an episode because, to your point, my life is the hardest it's ever been by far. It's not close. Pressure, overwhelm, stress, being pulled apart in a bunch of different places. I mean, that is every day. And it also is the best, and I can't imagine doing anything different. So I call it privilege pressure. Not everybody gets to choose their pressure. Some people, a lot of us go to jobs that we don't like to provide, and we don't have the privilege of choosing. I have the privilege of choosing my pressure. So that's one thing. Second thing is I am eternally grateful that I get to do this weird thing for a living. And I don't ever, 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 ever want to lose sight of how blessed I am to be able to do this, all of that. And I just look back all the time. I go and look back at pictures of myself when I started or before I started, and it just gives me the ultimate perspective. So my life is the most challenging it's ever been, but I also am having the most impact I've ever had. I also feel like I'm the most fulfilled I've ever been. And I'm also the most confident I've ever been. I'm not somebody who is naturally confident. I've done this like a lot. I've done this 3,000 times or whatever. So this is a little different for me, but I'm actually confident in real life, which is freaking weird to me. And I'm trying to figure out how to be confident without being arrogant. It's a whole thing. So it is amazing and it is wonderful. And it has issues that you might not guess, but they're problems that I would have wished for 5 years ago.
I think it's really beautiful the way that you are recognizing this and acknowledging like the problems that you have and recognizing that, some problems are good problems. Some problems are, as you said, ones you only could have wished for in your wildest dreams years ago. I want to switch gears a little bit and go back to something you said earlier. Now, you grew up without your father and you were raised by strong women.
Mhm.
How did that shape the way that you viewed masculinity? And how has that view evolved on your healing journey over time?
I still struggle being in groups of men because I don't know how to be. I don't know how to be / I don't want to pretend to be something I'm not. Like I'm not the guy. I'm not going to talk about my sex life with the guys. Like that's just not who I am. I don't see any point in it. I don't want to know about yours. I don't know why you want to know about mine. So like, I don't know, why are we talking about that? So I still am awkward with it for sure. And I'm still figuring it out. And my biggest room for growth right now is my deep fear of disappointing men. Like that to this day, I still deal with that. I love talking with women. It's so much easier for me because I have a really good relationship at being raised by women, right? So that's a big piece, and that's still something I'm dealing with. I don't think I ever really noticed it when I was younger. I don't know if I ever understood the impact it had on me. So very honestly, I don't know how it impacted me because I don't know what life would have been on the other side of it. I would say it gave me a really deep respect for women. Like I'm a protector at heart, and I cannot stand to see the people in my life being mistreated or taken advantage of I've always been like that type of person, not just with women, but people in general. So it definitely created a protector in me. But I think it also made me realize that if I was raised with a male role model in my life, even if they weren't a male role model, it probably would have changed me in a lot of negative ways. So I think the void that was created by not having my dad was probably a really positive void, all things considered, because I didn't have to unlearn things, really. I had to learn things, and I think sometimes learning things is easier. So I'm still working through it to this day. Any struggles I have are with men or groups of men, especially very dominant men. I still struggle with that. I don't want to do the jousting. I don't want to do the ego. I don't want to do that. So yeah, that very honestly, that's something I'm still working through in real time.
That's a great segue into my question about, building your business, building your podcast. And you do that with a partner, sort of like Kristen and I here.
Yeah.
And so this partner, your podcast partner, it sounds like they're your childhood friend. And you had to sort of rebuild from where you started with them and rebuild the trust and what each person uniquely brings to the table. How was that experience, and what role do you think like your view of masculinity played into that?
So Alan and I went to middle school together. In middle school, we played spin the bottle with the popular girls. So I peaked like super early, unfortunately. Struggle, but it is what it is. And then in high school, he was getting the President's Award and getting straight A's and trying to go to one of the best technical schools in the world. I was a captain of the baseball team. I didn't care about school. We didn't get along very well in high school. Then in probably 2016, we reconnected. I saw him at a party. He had left his multiple six-figure job to become an entrepreneur. And he had a beautiful girlfriend. He was in really good shape. I was like, interesting. There's something different about him. So when I started my podcast, he was my first guest. And then from there, we were just two peas in a pod. I was so interested in philosophy and personal development, and he had been studying it for years already. So he's been my mentor since day one. It's interesting because Alan is one of the healthiest masculine men I've ever met in my life. A big piece of that, though, was we were so vulnerable with each other in the beginning where we sat down and I said, brother, we don't say shit like that anymore. That does not come out of our mouth anymore. That is not even allowed here. Our thing in the beginning when we were broke was character over everything. A big piece of that, Louisa, the majority of our audience in the beginning was women. Mm-hmm. I felt very good talking to women, and I knew that if I wanted to level up my character, the way I was going to have to level up my character was to be positive and to be somebody who those women would aspire to spend time with. Not date. I'm not like that, but somebody that they would look up to and say, I feel safe with this person. That was our obsession. Our obsession was, I want to be the type of person that all people feel safe around. That's the goal. So that was a little cheat code that I didn't expect. And then I think a big piece for us, like masculinity to me means living in the truth. Like that's what it means to me. It doesn't mean being toxic. It doesn't mean not showing emotion. I don't agree with any of that. I think it means living in the truth. Alan and I live in the truth to a very, very challenging degree where we give each other really, really challenging pieces of feedback. And that has helped us so much not become toxic masculine. There's always somebody there checking you. Right? I don't have many yes men in my life. I don't have that. I don't want that. So if I say something that's off, Alan will call me out. If Alan says something that's off, I will call him out, and we keep each other accountable in that, because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. The money is great, and I have a nice car, and awesome, great, cool. None of that matters if we lose sight of why we started this in the first place.
That's so beautiful. And there's so many parallels between your and Alan's story and Louisa and I in my story, which is so beautiful. Louisa also had her own podcast and I was a guest on hers. And then she said, "Do you want to come back and be a guest again?" Well, 8 episodes later, we said, "Shoot, let's just start our own podcast together." That's so beautiful. And now you coach others. And I'm a little curious to know what's one common internal belief that you notice people carry with them that keeps them stuck where they are?
Inaccurate self-worth. So most people are either inaccurate, delusionally low, or delusionally high. So this is always the example we use. If I meet someone and they say, I don't feel like I believe in myself enough. Like, okay, cool. Let's test that. Let's test that and see what comes of it. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe in your own unique ability to build something in the external world, right? You're going to build your business. You're going to build this magnificent castle. And oftentimes people will say 8 out of 10. I know I can build it. Awesome. Cool. On a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe that you deserve to move into it, to sleep in the beautiful bed, to have the view from your property overlooking the beautiful lawn and looking into the lagoon, to have boundaries around the nice things that you've created, to tell people not to spill beer on your carpet? How much do you feel like you actually belong there and deserve it? And I asked that to somebody one time and he said, 2 out of 10. I said, brother, this is not a self-belief issue. This is a self-worth issue. That's probably the most common. And that's something going back to your question, Louisa, one of the reasons I struggled as bad as I did is because I had super low self-worth and I assumed external things would increase my self-worth. So that's a big one. And then unfortunately, and I don't work with these types of people, it's just not my cup of tea, but there are some people that have delusionally high self-worth. So I should be successful by default. I deserve the finest things in life without work. It feels good and it's attractive. It's like an attractive energy, but usually you end up getting stuck there because if you don't create meaningful value in the real world, you're not going to get anything. So I would say, misaligned self-worth, misaligned self-belief. Those are probably the two most common ones.
I love that. And I wonder for you so far in your journey, what has been the one thing that you feel like has been able to turn that around for people, like to help them change their lack of self-belief and actually believe in themselves?
Self-belief it's not this simple, but it kind of is. 3 steps: state, prove, self-assign. So you wake up in the morning, you say, today I am going to do blank, whatever it is, right? You prove to yourself by actually doing it that you're going to do it. And then this is a big one that a lot of people don't do. And this is the one I was guilty of: self-assign. You get to the end of the day and you say, oh my goodness, I am so proud of me because I did the thing that I said I was going to do. If you're somebody out there and you feel like you just get lucky all the time, maybe you're not stating it and maybe you're not self-assigning it, but you are proving to yourself in some way, shape, or form. So that's a pretty common one. That's you. I mean, for me, that's essentially all I've done. If I'm any more confident, if I have any more self-belief in this, it's because I've stated, proved, and self-assigned more times. If we don't have self-belief in something, it's most likely because when we state it, we don't prove it to ourselves and we let ourselves down. And then what we do is we self-assign the regret. So next time we go to state it, we're not even willing to state it because we don't want to let ourselves down enough. That's the doom loop. So 3 steps: state it, prove to yourself that you're capable of doing it, and then self-assign it. And this is why like the New Year's resolution mindset doesn't work. You state something that is just not feasible. You couldn't possibly prove it to yourself. And then you self-assign the regret. The best way to build belief is to set almost embarrassingly small goals / set a goal that is directly connected to the level of self-belief you currently have. If you have a level 2 self-belief, set a level 2 goal. Don't say you're going to make $1 million today. You're not going to, and you're going to set yourself up for failure. Set your goals based on your current level of self-belief, not the desired one.
That's beautiful. I just have to say that.
I appreciate it.
Yes, very profound. I need to write this down somewhere.
I wrote it down for us. I wrote it down for us.
I'll have to listen back. So your podcast, Next Level University, it speaks to holistic self-improvement across love, life, health, and wealth. Which of those pillars was the hardest for you to heal? And I'm kind of curious to know which of those is your greatest teacher now?
Mm.
Ooh, great question. Hardest to heal. Probably wealth, probably money. We didn't have a lot of money, but my mom was reckless with money for some reason. So I developed a lot of reckless habits. I'm the type of guy, like, I want to, if the bill is $50, I want to tip $50. That's good and terrible if you don't have any money. That's a dangerous game. So I would say money was the one that I really had to work on, because so much of it was attached to my identity and so much of it was attached to my significance. So that was probably the hardest. I would say today it's probably love. I'm very happily married, and I heard a quote one time, the only thing worse than being an entrepreneur is being married to one. I don't know if that's true or not, because I am the entrepreneur, but it's taught me so much about communication and working through traumas and triggers and past stuff together. I think relationships are one of the hardest things in the world, because there's two people. Either I get up and go to the gym or I don't. I can't blame that on anybody. Nobody else has that much influence over it. I do. When you live with someone, when you're married with someone, when you share money with someone, when you share time with someone, when you share family with someone, that's drastically different. So I expect that will continue to be the teacher for me, probably for a long period of time. I think it's seasonal. I feel like it's, I go through a phase where I'm learning so much about my physical body, and then I learn so much about my mind and my mental health. But I'd say probably love. That's the thing I'm learning the most about now. That's my teacher.
Beautiful.
Ah, so beautiful and so real. So real for all of us, so tangible, right? And I really hope that you're wrong about that. Being married to the entrepreneur is worse than
Are
being.
you gonna be?
I hope so at some point.
That's what I've heard. I think I try to be as conscious of an entrepreneur as I can, but my wife was in bed when I finished work last night, right? So there wasn't that much time for connection, and I work essentially every Saturday. Sunday is essentially my only day off, and so I imagine it's hard. And I have empathy for that, and I'm trying to find. This is the honest truth that most people will never tell you. If I'm not working on the business is not growing. That is bad for business. If I'm not with my wife, my relationship is not necessarily strengthening. That might be bad for the relationship. I can only really do one of those things at a time. So right now, this is good for my self-worth, and this is good for my mastery, and this is good for fulfillment. But my wife is waiting with dinner. She's used to it, so it works, but I can understand why it's challenging. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's beautifully said. I think that's so true. And I'm glad that you shared that, because there is kind of an illusion that can be created about being an entrepreneur that's not real.
Yes.
So thank you so much. And as we get ready to wrap up, we have one last question for you. What is the one thing for our listeners, if you had to ask your younger self to have believed in one thing, what do you think that would be, that could have possibly maybe changed the outcome of who you've become today?
Personal development. We gave a speech at a school one time, and I didn't have the freaking courage to say it. I wish I said it. I didn't have the courage to say it. When we were talking to the seniors, I wanted to say, look, I know how dumb all of this sounds. I know. And I know how cool it is to laugh at us. I know. But trust me, if you take just one little thing from something we talk about today, I guarantee it can change the trajectory of your life. You don't have to hit rock bottom like I did. You don't have to. It helps for some reason because it kicks you in the butt, but you don't have to get to that point. Yeah, I wish I bought into personal development sooner. All it means is you're working on yourself. That's it. You just get a little bit better today. whatever better means. It doesn't mean you're not great. It doesn't mean you're intrinsically not valuable. It just means you're working on your character, you're working on your competencies, confidence, self-belief, self-worth. So yeah, I wish I bought into that sooner because I feel like it would have changed my life. But 27, all things considered, is still pretty early, but 17 would have been a lot better.
Kevin, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. You are truly an inspiration, and your story today shows us that you really can make the most of your life and follow your true path at any stage, even if you've already hit rock bottom. To our free spirits out there, do you want more stories, resources, and behind the scenes magic? Head on over to flyingupstreampodcast.com and join the movement. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and of course, keep flying upstream.